Okay, I didn't see your thumb, so I'm guessing you mean to start now. Um, yeah, I haven't been very well this week, so bear with me. I wrote a lot of notes, and I'll start off with a bit of my history, my background. I think I started drinking when I was about just before 15, and I drank a bit like Bill W. I drank for oblivion straight away, and just to take away that anxiety. I was always full of fear, and it just took the edge off the anxiety. And so I thought that was me and that was my identity. So every chance I could, I'd go out and get wasted, and I felt like I fitted in. I could speak to anybody. I could speak to the boys, and it got worse over time. And then I found the rave scene, and I ended up just awake all weekends, and just wanted that to be my life. I wanted that to be my career, really. And I ended up buying a caravan on a gypsy site and went down that road. I lost the power choice when I was about 19, I think. That was the point of no return. And then I had consequences. I got with a violent drug addict and lost two children. And then I ended up on drugs myself and I lost them. Um, so I had lots of consequences along the way that none of that stopped me. I went in 5 rehabs, lots of detoxes, um, lots of suicide attempts. And I still hadn't had enough. I didn't want to live, I didn't want to die, sort of thing. And the last time I nearly actually died, and they had to bring me back. I did mean to do that, but and when I got brought back, I thought I do want to live after all. I'm lucky that I'm still here, but I believe I was saved because I've got a purpose to help others, and I really have got a zest for life today. Um, yeah, so moving on, I started going to recovery meetings. I was in and out for 10 years. I was like a rebel, a self-will run riot, and I just couldn't surrender. And I was still acting out, taking handfuls of pills and shoplifting and acting out with the men. And my first spiritual experience, I was sat in a meeting and I just broke down in tears. And it was like this surrender from God, which it was just amazing. It was, I was burst into tears, like I said, and it was just, wasn't sad tears or happy tears. It was just like a relief. And I stopped self-willing it as much and started following suggestions. I became teachable and accountable and started doing what I needed to do. I got to about 10 months and then I had that spiritual malady, really. And the meeting I was going to wasn't great. And I ended up in Bristol, and then ended up in, by accident, in a big book thumpers meeting. And I believe that saved my life, actually. And I did, I met somebody in a meeting then, and I did a course on the 12 steps and the big book. It was like a treatment center in the daytime. And my sponsor, Steve, at the time worked there. And yeah, and it made me fall in love with a big book, really. And yeah, that was it at the start, really. I went back and started a few meetings and started sponsoring and made sure to get people armed with the facts. And like my love of the big book, I passed on to other people. And then I got to about 4 years in, and I had a bit of another spiritual malady, and I felt like I needed more than meetings. So I ended up joining a church and becoming a Christian. Um, and for me, that was the missing link, but not just saying that's for everybody. I believe in other things as well. I like Buddhism and spirituality and crystals and different things. And it's whatever works for you. I just someone who's all or nothing and needed something with a depth and weight. Because I can't do half measures with anything. I found out. And over the years, I've been to lots of different meetings. And then when lockdown hit, I was lucky enough to start hosting some worldwide meetings and helping people around the world. And my life just took off. And I've been already this year to visit a sponsor in California. And that was great, meeting lots of people I'd only seen online. And then next year, I'm going to meet two sponsees, one in Mexico and Texas. Then I'm meeting Father Bill, who's my spiritual guide, and it's just like the gift that doesn't stop giving. Really, it's amazing. And I've done lots of different ways of the steps, and I need to. I'm a seeker, really. I like to seek things out, and I need to keep growing, because if you don't grow, you go, really. And the steps bring about the change, the transformation we need, that psychic change, the personality change. And I need to continue taking personal inventory and watch and spot throughout the day for ego resurgence, because when ego meets God, we're made humble, but we need an ego, but we need to keep it right sized. And I just thought I'd read out a few bits of the book that I picked out today. The first bit is: there were revolutionary and drastic proposals, but the moment I fully accepted them, the effect was electric. There was a sense of victory, followed by such a peace and serenity as I had never known. There was utter confidence. I felt lifted up, as though the great clear wind of a mountain top blew through and through. God comes to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. I didn't actually have that spiritual experience it talked about there, that I had a spiritual awakening educational variety, but I've had many spiritual experiences through my faith. I've been to lots of different places and just been struck by the spirit, and amazing experiences. I get messages from God, I get words for people, and I do healing for people, and prophecy and different things. So I'm involved in lots of different things, and that's okay, whatever you're involved in, whatever works for you. I'm going to just do the next reading. I've picked the fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week ago or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. And that was me. I didn't have a defense. Every time I had that obsession come on me, I had to act on it. I was powerless and needed a power, really. I'd lost the power of choice, and I was unmanageable, and I just needed God, basically. And that mental defense has to come from a higher power. And like I said, I've got a really strong faith today, and that helped me. And the next reading, the great fact is just this and nothing less, that, we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude towards life, towards our fellow, and towards God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator had entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed I'm having a job reading, miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish these things for us, which we could never do by ourselves. And I could never do that by myself. All these spiritual experiences I've had have just been amazing. And it's like they never stop. They just keep going and going. And I was just going to say about when I came to step 2, I felt like the sanity being whole, and I was less than whole, and it was giving me hope that I could be made whole again. And in step 3, to make that decision, the most important decision ever made, to turn my thinking and my actions over to God. And I only did that once in a church with my sponsor. I've done it with lots of sponsees since. It's not something you need to keep doing, but I do need to keep reminded of that step 3, because I can come back into self-will easily, and I need to stay in that. And I've got a brilliant step 3 reading I like to read about the actor and things, and as if I was the first person, and it's that's really helped me over the years. And then I just read on page 52, the bedevilments. There's that spiritual malady I talked about. I've had quite a few times over the years, and we were having trouble with personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were a prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy. We couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. So that's the opposite of the promises. And that's what I was like all the time. And I've had times where I've been like it, can't manage your life drunk or sober at points in my recovery. And so getting up to that, then I did a thorough step 4 and 5. It took me a while to get rid of everything. I felt like I had to find someone I trusted, and my sponsor, Steve, was the first time I trusted someone to tell everything about myself. And he didn't bat an eyelid when I come out with these things. In the end, it was like these things that I was holding dear were keeping me sick. And to someone else, it's not as big as it is in our heads. And I've done lots of different step 5s, and the Big Book Awakening process really got to some deep stuff, and uncovered a lot for me with the realizations and the fears involved. And then the principles, doing the principles inventory and things like that, it's just been amazing. It's been something else. And now I'm doing inner child and shadow work with Father Bill, and in a Sam Shoemaker community with him. And so that's what I mean. I need to keep growing, and it's just amazing where I am today, and the mentors I've got, and the life I've got. And I still can't get my head around it today. And then 6 and 7 was really about change for me, and that's where Bill W. put the 4 absolutes. And then the amends stage, I can tell you that funny story now. I really went to town on these because someone told me about Dr. Bob saying that he relapsed until he made all his amends. And that did put the fear of God into me, because I really wanted to do this and I didn't want to mess it up. So I went to town on these. I went and made amends to doctors for false prescriptions, night shelters for injecting in the toilets and going in the men's dorm and things. Then I made amends to my mum, which was really painful. She said it was really scared her because she thought I was going to die all the time. And there was a police car that used to live in the block of flats that used to go around there. And she said every time she thought it was to say that I had died. And that was quite an emotional amends. I made some financial amends that were painful. And I didn't like giving my money away. And then I did all those in Oxford, a place that I used to use a lot. And then I thought I'd get carried away and had guidance on this one. So I went into this store and said, could I make amends for shoplifting? And they said, you're trespassing. We've got a picture of you in the office. And I didn't realise. I was quite insulted because I thought I looked quite well at this point. And so he said, write to head office, which I didn't do until I went to the BBA, and then I ended up writing a lot of amends, and I contacted 2 stores that I did shoplift in and asked if I could give an amount of money or if there's anything they'd like me to do, or to a charity. So one of them suggested 2 charities, so I gave it a sum that I'd feel to them. And the other one suggested just an apology email, so which I did, and then they sent me an email back wishing me all the luck, and if there's anything they can do to help, get in touch. And Mum said you should have asked them for some freebies. So that was well, it's good to make humour out of it all. And yeah, so step 10 really was 4 to 9 on a daily basis, really, and for me, continue to do inventory when I needed it. And the promise in there is cease fighting anybody or anything. And we've entered into the world of the spirit, the 4th dimension, and that existence I live in today through continue to do 10, 11, 12, because I think I'm recovered on a daily basis on what I do in that day. I have to stay unblocked and do inventory and write thorough inventory. I do, and then keep doing what I need to do to grow. And I watch and spot throughout the day, as I said. And sanity should have returned by then, but we can make more our own decisions again. And the sane outweighs the insane more. The mental twist, the insane outweighed the sane, and it's the other way around here. And the mental twist that we had is the opposite. And I have to keep in fit spiritual condition today and stay in all 3 areas of the triangle. And yeah, I have a daily reprieve, I think, today, and I'm recovered. And I just need to keep up some maintenance. God consciousness, that bit deep down within us, it sense, knowing the next right thing to do, really. And that's what I try and do today. And I get this God consciousness and feelings of what to do. And yeah, so I've just got another few readings on here. Hopefully I'll be able to read it. I haven't got my glasses on. So yes. So really step 10 is continuing practicing of steps 4 to 9 on a daily basis, like I said. And got a few readings out of this one. If we can grow spiritually and mentally and in right relationship with the physical world, we're going to expand into the 4th dimension, like I said, the realm of the spirit. I think I always believed in a higher power. And I always got a warmth in churches. I just didn't ever access it and was blocked off, because everyone's born with that inside them, the idea of God, and then it gets blocked off when opinions come in. The key thing is to detect discomfort early, analyze it right away, and work your way around it. And that's what I try and do today. When I have a discomfort, I've gone even deeper, like I said, what's disturbing me, and I'll pause, pray and proceed, and try and watch my reactions and expectations and things. I'll speak to somebody, but my first call is actually writing a 2-way prayer, which I'll go into a bit later. As I've become less human reliant. The more we do step 10, the more we learn about ourselves, it becomes a project. This is healthy. And self-interest can be healthy when we can now have goals and ways to meet our goals. We can have success and a purpose for living. And I feel like I've found my purpose today. And sometimes we can get into emotional pain with things or fear, and I can feel things come up, and I've got tools to deal with that today. because I've always been an anxious person. But then I just have to ask myself, well, where's God in all that, really? Just go on to the next page. Turning over our will in step 3 and receiving of God's will in step 11. And that's what I feel like I've done today. In step 3, our will interacts with God's will. In step 3, in 11, we give up our direction. We receive God's direction. We turn our will and our lives over to God as we understood him. We receive God's will in our lives and the power to carry it out from God as we understood him. And I feel like I do live in the promises and not the bedevilments most of the time today. And that's just been a godsend, really. And I do feel like I was once lost, but now I'm found in that amazing grace. That just, I've been on quite a lot of spiritual retreats. And over the years, I've had lots of transformations and surrenders, lots of different ones. I need to keep my relationship right, and the intimacy with God I've got today is just like having a best friend wherever I am in the world. And I have to ask and turn to God throughout the day and try and live by God's self and others, trust God, clean house and help others. When something happens now, like I said before, I go instantly to two-way prayer, which is a process where I just ask God what's going on, or a problem, or can you help me with this, or how would you have me be, whatever you say. And then you write like a term of endearment, like my dear child, my darling daughter, my little warrior, whatever, because I've got a two-way prayer group and lots of different people have different terms of endearment, like my little one, another one. And then you free flow write for up to 10 minutes. And then after that, you just look, if it doesn't seem like it's from you or God, you just look past the 4 absolute. Is it honest? Is it pure? Is it unselfish? And is it from love? That's what Father Bill taught me to do. And so now I try and teach other people that. And I love the 4 absolutes, and they are in step 6 and 7 is where Bill W. put them. And Dr. Bob practiced two-way prayer all of his life, and it emphasized the necessity of that quiet time in the morning, that half an hour quiet time, and reading a bit and then doing a two-way prayer, and that connection. I think it's the missing ingredient really today in recovery. So I've got my sponsor, but as I said, I just now just go straight to God, and he's the source for me. Some people can worship the big book, and it's just a map really, and sometimes people get into difficulties because they miss having the higher power, and just quoting the book might be enough for some people, but I think you need a higher power as well, and you need to keep humble and be less human reliant. And it says we shouldn't be shy on this matter, and I don't believe we should. Like I said, I think that we really do need that quiet time, a daily routine, because we're creatures of habit, and that 30 minutes every morning is crucial for my life. If I miss it, then I can feel it straight away. I might do a little reading or a little meditation. It's whatever works for you. Well, that Dr. Bob, he was just more religious than Bill. Bill was more, well, he actually liked spiritual churches and things in the end, but he was a seeker. First he gave himself to, when he was in the night shelter that Ebby Thatcher was, he gave himself to Jesus then. But then later on, he messed around with different things. He was always seeking for something. So then later on, he did like, the other side stuff and things like that. And then when he had Father Ed Dowling, he was thinking of becoming a Catholic. But he said, no, I don't think that'd be a good for AA. So I just got a few bits here. Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers tells of the 1938 report written by Frank Amos and sent to John D. Rockefeller after he studied the new recovery movement. Amos reported the AA members of that time did not consider meetings necessary to maintain sobriety. They were simply desirable. Morning devotion and quiet time, however, were musts. Bill Wilson, I sort of always felt that something was lost from AA when we stopped emphasizing the morning meditation. So in Dr. Bob's last major talk in Detroit, he identified some of the spiritual principles that kept him and other AA pioneers sober. We were convinced that the answer to our problems was in the good book. To some of us older ones, the parts we found absolutely essential were the Sermon on the Mount, the 13th chapter of 1 Corinthians, and the book of James. The four absolutes, as we called them, were only yardsticks we had in the early days before the steps. I think the absolutes still hold good and can be extremely helpful. I have found at times that a question arises and I want to do the right thing, but the answer is not obvious. Almost always, if I measure my decision carefully by the yardsticks of absolute honesty, absolute unselfishness, absolute purity, and absolute love, and check it pretty well with those four, then my answer can't be far out of the way. Yeah, so there was part of us lost, like I said, and that part is deep down within all of us. We just need to get unblocked. And that can, like with a two-way prayer, you can ask, is it for me? But it might be the best part of you, that bit that is deep down within all of us. And the big book, 11-step instruction, is to encourage us, ask God, direct our thinking, and we ask God for inspiration and intuitive thought. What used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. Being still in experience and having just made conscious contact with God, it is not probable that we are going to be inspired at all times. We may pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We will come to rely upon it. And I'm just going to play a bit of meditation in a minute. It's just this last bit I wanted to read. Once we simplify our prayers and ask only God's directions and the power to carry that out, once we see God's directions throughout the day and act on them, we will see God working in our lives more and more each day. And a passerby saw St. Francis tending a garden. He said, "You must have prayed very hard, Francis, for things to grow so well." Francis said, "Yes, and every time I prayed, I picked up my hoe." I'm just going to pray the meditation.